buddy gonna ride on the railroad? Went down Chestertown when they just said goodbye. Oh, buddy gonna ride on the railroad. Once proud and shining, now she's dusty and dry.
That's a beautiful song. That is Marc Berger, the first track from his new CD called Ride. Marc in the studio with us right now. Welcome to the studio, Marc.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Good to be here.
You know, that I don't think there's ever been a song that sort of really exemplified what the album is and what the visual of the album. It was a sonic visual there as you sort of, the expanse, the landscape opens up slowly. It's almost like you're coming into the horizon, and you can see the big sky coming into view. What a way to start an album. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
A real sense of discovery in there.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we definitely were going for something cinematic and visual, obviously, given the subject, you know?
Yeah, the subject is basically exploring the American West and the myth and all that, and American ideas.
Yeah,
well, you tell what the idea is.
The record, at least on its surface, all the songs in one way or another have something to do with the subject of, you know, the great American myth of, you know, the American West, the romantic frontier, and that concept that's obviously so resonant and well traveled.
Nobody Gonna Ride on a Railroad, the first track from Ride, Marc Berger. So you were saying you grew up in New York, and now you're writing about Montana. What happened here?
Yeah, well...
how did that happen?
It's a fair question. In my 20s, I made a trip out west. I had never really been out west. Got in a car with a friend of mine. We went cross-country in the late summer. It just seemed like something we should do. Sounded like a fun trip, but I had kind of no idea what I was really in for, you know? And the first time we went out there, we were kind of clueless of the sense of distances between things. I remember we got to the Grand Canyon. There was no place to pitch a tent, so we just said, well, let's go to Yosemite tonight, you know. And we just treated the West like that on that first trip like it was a Milton Bradley game or something, you know. But we were so excited and so charged from just, you know, the scale of things and the discovery of it. And I mean, I realize this is not news to a lot of people, but at least in my early 20s, coming from a city upbringing in New York, I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And so, I mean, it just started to be where, like, whenever I could get the time, that's where I wanted to be. And it really remained so for most of my life. And you know, I had rock and roll bands in New York City and played in clubs like CBGB, electric guitar bands. But in the course of my writing, some songs had something to do with the West. And at a certain point, I just got the idea of making this record, you know, that there is this great tradition in terms of film and in terms of literature with regard to the West, but not really quite so much. I mean, you think of, you know, Streets of Laredo, Home on the Range, but nothing that quite compares to this tradition of movies and the tradition of literature. Mm-hmm. And so I just got interested in the idea because I was really familiar with this. I had spent a lot of time in remote areas of the American West, and it spoke to me. And then I encountered a writer by the name of A.B. Guthrie, who is really just, you know, I mean, he did win a Pulitzer Prize in the 50s, but he's not that well known, but he should be. And reading a book of his called The Big Sky, which is about the first white guys, you know, that went out into the West before the settlers went out there, before the domestic situation occurred. You know, the guys that went out there because they didn't want anybody to tell them what to do, lived as trappers with the Indians. So it takes place in that time period, and the characters are those characters who are at that particular time bemoaning the fact that the stuff is ending. There's no more beaver. People are coming out now, and they're setting up little farms, and it's like, you know. And so it just really spoke to me, and it made me more and more interested in, like, using my unique life experience and then, you know, my skills as developed as a songwriter to create an album that really was a concept that had to do with this subject.
When you talk about remote areas of the West, you know, how do you find those places? And secondly, on your website, you have a number of photographs. Are those your photographs?
No, that's another story. This record was created by me and my music partner and co-producer drummer on the record. His name is Mike Riccardi. And, we played together now at this point for like 20 years. But in the course of making the record, he became a genius photographer. And he decided he'd just go out west and he'd get the cover. So he went to Monument Valley in the American Southwest, southeastern Utah. And one thing led to another, and all the artwork in there, and really fabulous, beautiful visuals are all created by him. And the visual aspect, the packaging, the website and the images in the website. There's even a link in the website, which is marcbergermusic.com, MarcBerger music.com, called The Art of Ride, where you can click on the link and he describes, his trips into these regions to get the photographs that became part of the packaging of the CD.
Wow, what a great idea! I'll have to get on there and read that. It's sounds great. They really are great photographs too.
Well, I couldn't agree more.
How did you find the remote areas of the West?
Well, I mean, it was started out in the gradient, like I said. The first time we went out there, we were just driving everywhere. Then I started to hear about the idea of backpacking, which I know anything about. And that leads you into winding up into places far removed from society, but also running into people who are similarly passionate about getting into those places. And you trade stories, and they tell you, "Well, have you ever been here?" Well, no. Oh, that sounds cool. How do you get there? Well, listen. You go down this dirt road by the Bureau of Land Management mobile home, in Kanab, and you start out down there and you go into Pariah Canyon, or and you just start to get excited. And your next trip is always like, wow, I got to get out and see this place. I've heard about this. This guy told me about this place, and that's kind of how it works.
We were talking earlier too, before you went on, about how the music of the band sort of reflects this and how it influenced you.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, that was their first two records were just so impressive to me, and I think the values that I really was attracted to was there was just no rock star thing. It was so egoless, and it was just all about the song, all about the music. But on the other hand, the thing that they did that I found extremely alluring was they created this universe of this lost American South, and they just put you in this world, and it had nothing to do really necessarily with the present world that we were in, but boy, did it speak to me. And the interesting thing is all those guys are from Canada.
I know.
And so here they're creating this, and it's almost like vacuum sealed. It's like so real to me, as I'm listening to the music. And so that idea of what they did with the South was a bit of a model for what I wanted to do, only using the West as my subject.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to do another song.
Yeah, sure. Let me just switch out my harmonica.
Yeah, his brand new CD, Ride, is really an amazing panoramic view of spaces.
All right, so this is a song called The Buffalo Song. Used to put a buffalo on your money way back when, but now you've chased him from creation. Here tell we will not be seeing them again, but I guess that's just the price of progress. So I won't stoop to ask for proof, won't ask which way they went. If you will keep my Buick on the highway, 'cause in America your mother can become the president, and you can make your fortune on the phone.
never seem to find the time for that little garden in the yard. See my kids fully grown, never understood why Daddy had to work so hard to get so very little done. But I won't stoop to ask for proof, won't ask which way they went. If you will keep my Buick on the highway, 'cause in America your mother can become the president, and you can make your fortune on the phone.
Marc Berger in the studio. You take a song like that into a practice room with a band. How do they approach it? Do you have something in mind? Do you say, okay, you come in with this? And
well, that's the thing. I don't read music, and it's one of the interesting things about, it's tricky. It's a very good question. It's tricky to communicate, so I'm trying to really communicate, this feeling that you might get if you were in Yellowstone Park by the Firehole River at dusk, and you see the head of a buffalo in the distance chewing on the grass and a fumarole shooting steam up into the air. And you would look at that scene and you say, nothing has changed from a million years ago here, So that's what we're trying to do, and we just have to figure out how to use musical instruments to paint that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a school that teaches musicians how to play things like that. There are that. I mean, basically, you can. I've been around musicians who you say, well, make it this or make it that, and they're able to do that. It's good musicians.
Plus the guys that I play with, I have we have a pretty long history together, and so it's like Mike, my music partner, like he said, when we were mixing the record, because it was very tricky. We weren't engineers, and it took a long time to make this record, because that was the hard part, is figuring out how to use the studio to make the movie out of the song,
Yeah.
And we didn't know how. And so we had to learn how. So we had to mix things over and over to get them to where they looked the way we wanted them to. And when we were frustrated and it just didn't seem right, Mike invented, and we came to be called the Riccardi test, which is his last name, which is like, what is it? We had to be able to answer the question, well, what is it? Which is the question you really just asked me. Is that when you play the song, when you record the song, you better know what it is, or what you're going to get at the end is just not going to be that clear.
Wow. So you were learning as you went along, recording and becoming an engineer and a cinematographer at the same time.
Well, yeah, we just, like I said, it was like the blind man feeling the elephant. It was tricky.
Well, it worked really well. It's a great album, and
Thank you.
It's getting a lot of play around the country too.
Yeah,
I think,
thanks very much. Thank you, Scott.
You want to choose one to play to go off?
Yeah, sure. Maybe you want to play Twister.
Twister. Okay, I was wondering about Twister. Let me see. I got to count now because you didn't put numbers next to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Two,
No,
three,
we're a little elusive that way. I think you're looking at number 6.
Yep, you're right.
Okay, cool.
You want to talk a little bit about Twister? Or where did it come from? Did you actually?
This particular song, I'm not sure how much I want to talk about it because it's just it's got some layers,
Mm-hmm. And this comes from Ride, his brand new CD. What's your website again?
MarcBergerMusic.com. That's MARC.
Yep.
BERGER music.com.
Well, thanks for taking the time out this morning to come in here. I appreciate it.
Oh, total pleasure, Scott. Thank you for having me.
It's from his new CD, Ride.